how's it going, everybody? So yeah, it's the end of the season recap. As the Waynes season has officially come to a close after last night, as the Waynes have been officially eliminated from playoff contention, despite the Waynes doing everything they needed to on their end to get the job to get into playoffs, sadly they could not get the help they needed, and the Waynes got eliminated off a tiebreaker with Washington. Because the Waynes they need to beat Montreal and they needed Washington to lose last night. And Washington beat Philadelphia, so that didn't happen. So yeah, the Waynes, despite having their best season since the last time they made the playoffs, it was still not good enough to make it in. Just, very disappointing how the season ended, even though when the Waynes won in the shootout against Montreal, I think the players not celebrating, the coaching staff not celebrating. I think it speaks for everybody in the fan base. Really last night, there was really nothing worth celebrating last night. The only way last night's win against Montreal would have been worth celebrating over is if we were knocking Montreal out of the playoffs and keeping them from making the playoffs, like the Lions keeping the Packers out. Because Montreal was already eliminated beforehand. I know a lot of people have compared this Wayne season to the Lions 2022 season, where it came down to the last game of the season, and the Waynes got eliminated despite doing everything in their power to get in, but losing out on a tiebreaker. The difference between the Lions 2022 season and the Red Wings 2024 season is that in Week 17, the Lions were eliminated before their last game even began, since the Lions were on Sunday night against the Packers in 2022. Plus, the Packers are still playing for a playoff spot. So, Detroit was hell-bent on ending Green Bay's season that night, no matter what. And this one, Detroit was fighting to get into playoffs. Montreal was already eliminated beforehand. And sadly, they did not get the help they needed. So, yeah, very disappointing season overall. I know some people are saying a season 6 success because we made a lot of progress this year, especially since we had a winning record. I mean, yeah, we had progress this year, but I feel like it's a failure because I think playoffs this year was a realistic expectation this year, and the Waynes didn't make the playoffs. Especially considering the fact that at the end of February, the Waynes were 10 points above to the good on a playoff spot, 9-10 games ahead of everybody else in the East in the wild card race, 5 games ahead, and a 75% chance of making the playoffs, and just completely blew it. And listen, for this though, I know a lot of people, we can bitch about the officiating in that Washington-Philadelphia game last night all we want. We can bitch and complain about Philadelphia pulling the goalie in a tie game with 3 minutes left and they coming back to bite him in the ass. We can bitch and complain about how stupid and dumb that was, because that was a stupid fucking call to pull the goalie in a tie game with 3 minutes left. And I know some people are going to come in the comments and be like, oh, but Philadelphia, they had to win in regulation to have a chance at making the playoffs. I don't give a fuck what the situation was. It's still stupid and dumb regardless, no matter how you slice it or dice it. Pulling a goalie in a tie game was dumb. I don't care how you slice it or dice it or twist it. It's dumb. Dumb is dumb at the end of the day. But the point is, though, we can bitch about that all we want, and we can bitch about how broken the playoff system is in a tiebreaker system, because it's a system that rewards losing. Because the Waynes had more wins this year than the Capitals and the Islanders, yet the Waynes are the odd one out because they didn't win enough games in regulation, which that is complete bullshit. We can complain about that all we want, but at the end of the damn day, the Waynes had 82 games to either A, get as far ahead in the standings as possible, and B, to not put themselves in a position where they needed outside help to get in the playoffs. And in the end, the Waynes didn't fail to take advantage of those 82 games. And I'll be honest, there's at least 10, 15 games maybe this season I think I could go back on and say that the Waynes should have won that game or handled their business there. I'll be honest, I think there's 10, 15 games we could go back on and say, hey, if this game went differently or that game went differently, the Wings will be in the playoffs. I mean, a lot of the inconsistency on the Wings this year came back to haunt them. Like, look at last week. Failing to beat Washington and Pittsburgh when it mattered the most in the season. Those two losses there alone came back to haunt the Wings. Losing 7 in a row to start off March after Larkin went down the second time. Actually, both times Larkin went down. That came back to haunt the Wings. Failing to beat Ottawa, and when Ottawa smack you across the ice, that came back to haunt the Wings. No showing against the Coyotes in both games, came back to haunt the Wings. Like, this year, just a bunch of missed opportunities. Like, I'll be honest, I never thought the Wings were winning the Cup this year. Like, they were nowhere near a Cup contender. Like, a lot of this season, it felt like the Wings were punching well above their weight class. Like, it really showed, though, especially when they had that game against Florida at the end of February. That game alone proved how much the Wings were punching above their weight class. But, still, the Wings had a 9-10 point lead in the wild card race and completely blew it in 1 month. Mainly losing 7 games in a row will do that to you. Like, honestly, there's a lot of blame that goes around on here. Like Derek alone is easily equal to blame here. Because this is the second year in a row the Wings have collapsed hard in the month of March. And when that happens 2 years in a row, that's usually a sign of a bad head coach. And Malone's also equally to blame for a lot of the slow starts this year because he didn't have the boys motivated and ready to go. Because it's the head coach's job to have the boys ready to go every night. And he didn't do that for a lot of games with how many slow starts the Wings have had. Yzerman's also equal to blame because no goaltending, no day-to-day goalie in the back end, because goaltending was atrocious for the Wings this year. Especially with how crucial goaltending is in hockey. One of the most important positions in hockey. And the Wings goaltending was so fucking dog shit this year. Like, there was a lot of progress, though, 100%, though. There were some positives to take out of this, especially with Lucas Raymond blossoming into a superstar. Like, easily the last month of the season, Raymond was no doubt the best player on the Wings the last month of the year. Alex DeBrincat, he started the season off strong, but he just kind of fell off the second half of the year. So, yeah, that's kind of disappointing, especially with how DeBrincat started the year off strong. But Patrick Kane did a really good job after we got him, near mid-season. So, that was good to see with Kane there. And once again, Dylan Larkin was once again a point a game per guy. This Wings team was so much different this year without Larkin, because this Wings team was just so bad with Larkin, Larkin going down a second time really hurt the Wings, because every time Larkin went down this year, the Wings immediately fell apart, which that shouldn't happen. If the Wings are falling apart, then that's on Yzerman for having terrible roster construction, because the team should not fall apart from one guy going down. But yeah, there's a lot of blame to go through. Honestly, I think there's a lot that is equal here. In the end, though, the Wings had a chance and they just didn't do their job. Honestly, the 7-game losing streak, losing to Pittsburgh and Washington last week, failing to get the job done, that just put Detroit in a position they were in to end the year the last 3 games. Where they were in 3 must-win games to keep their season alive. Even though the Wings won those games, they didn't get the help they needed. And to be honest, the Wings should have never been in a position where they had to rely on outside help to get in. Especially considering where they were at the end of February, when they had a 75% chance of making the playoffs and completely blew it. The whole thing with me with the playoffs, I think the playoffs was an expectation to get some of the young guys that experience in the playoffs. It was simply just make it, and whatever happens this year happens. And it's kind of frustrating because I think the Wings could have had a series with the Cat Rangers. I don't think the Wings would have beat, I'll be honest, the Wings would not have beat the Rangers in the first round. They would have but I think the Wings could have took that series to 6 games, like, because let's be honest, Washington's gonna get fucking bitch slapped by New York in the first round. Like, the Rangers are gonna wipe the ice with the fucking Capitals. Especially concerned that the Rangers have justifiably owned the Capitals like slaves throughout Washington's entire existence. Like, yeah, like, that's gonna be an awful fucking series. Like, honestly, the Capitals will be lucky if that series goes even 5 games. But yeah, just a pretty disappointing season. But at the same time, though, I am kind of glad the Wings missed the playoffs, though, because this roster needed a massive shakeup this offseason, and the Wings weren't going to get that shakeup if they made it in, if they snuck in. Because if they snuck in, then that would convince everybody that nothing needed to be changed and we could just keep rolling on. Now with the Wings missing this year in year 5 of the rebuild, now you need to make some serious changes here. Like I'll say it here, I'm not going to call for Yzerplan's head, but I think now we need to start asking ourselves what the hell is going on here and question what the hell is going on. Especially with some of Yzerman's roster construction this year, especially with some of the vets he brought in this year, you know, taking up some awful contracts as stopgap veterans, which honestly would just fill spots to keep the young guys from making the main roster and filling up holes. I mean, Simon Edvinsson looked very good in the small sample size he was in at the end of the year. I imagine that now Edvinsson's going to be on this roster full time, which adds in a big improvement on the defense. But yeah, definitely a lot needs to be addressed in the offseason. Like in terms of the Wings offseason, you got to start giving paydays now to Mo Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond, since now both of them are off their entry-level contracts, so now they're both due their first big boy paydays. And honestly, with how Raymond looked this year, especially the second half of the season, the last month, honestly, for Raymond, pay him whatever he wants. Just give him whatever he wants, man. Whereas Raymond's fucking earned a payday. I mean, Moritz Seider, I think Seider this year was kind of disappointing. I mean, I feel like he took a step back from what he was last year, especially when he won the Calder. Just kind of took a step back. You know, hopefully Seider gets that. Hopefully Seider can bounce back. You know, maybe bringing Edvinsson helps. You know, also hurt the defense with Jake Wollman out for much of the last month of the season from injury. Hopefully he comes back healthy. But yeah, I think in terms of priorities for the offseason, I think getting keeping Seider and Raymond in the fold needs to happen. I think re-signing Patrick Kane is also a big priority this offseason. Like, I think we gotta keep Kane in Detroit at all costs. Like, hopefully Kane will take a team discount to stay in Detroit. Hopefully. You know, I think, and also the Wings need to find a way to get some of these stopgap veterans off the roster. Find a way to shut off their awful contracts so we can get some of these young guys on the roster. Because you look at guys we have in the pipeline like a Jonathan Bergeron and Marco Kasper. Honestly, those two should be on the Wings roster full-time next season. Like, because those two are ready to go. 100% they're ready to go. And both of them also have higher ceilings than the likes of a Daniel Sprong or an Andrew Comp, etc. Like, those two need to be on the roster full-time. I'll be honest, for goaltending, I don't think the Wings are going to go get a goaltender in free agency. Like, I'll be honest, I think the Wings, I think they have their goaltender in the farm system in Sebastian Cossa. You know, Trey Augustine, he's a few years away from possibly being ready to go, but I feel like Sebastian Cossa, I think they need to get rid of Lyon and Reimer and roll with Husso and Cossa. Because I think Kossa's ready to go, especially with how Kossa's been the second half of the season with Grand Rapids. See, because Cossa, the second half of the season, has been an absolute fucking monster with Grand Rapids the second half of the season. I think Kossa's ready to come up. Like, I think it's Cossa time. And honestly, Sebastian Cossa is an automatic upgrade over what we have in net right now. So I think Kosa needs to be up here. Like Kosa, Casper, and Bergeron all need to be on the Red Wings opening day roster, opening night roster in October. Like those three are ready to go. Gotta shed some contracts off. I do think the Wings need to go get another defenseman though. Even though we do got Axel Sandnes Pellikka in this farm system, you know, he's still a few years away from being ready to go to be on the Wayne's roster. So I think you gotta go look at somebody, whether you gotta look at free agency, or if you look at trading for someone, maybe look at getting someone like a Jacob Chychrun or something like that. You know, Waynes need to upgrade that defense too, because guys like Evanson, Sider, and Wallman, that's not enough. And honestly, I think a guy like Chychrun would be a massive upgrade over a fucking guy like Jeff Petrie. No doubt about it. Like, a lot of the Yzerman needs to find a way to get some of these awful contracts off the books. You know, like the Waynes do got some talented young players in the farm system. But I think the Waynes' biggest crucial need is going to be their hardest one, which is buying a 1C player. You know, a player that can get like 40, 50 goals a season, or hell, even 100 points a season. Now, I don't know. The thing is, that's going to be very hard to do because I don't know where you get that. Like, I don't know if we have that on the roster already, or if we have someone in the farm system already. Like, could it be a guy like Dylan Larkin? Could it be Lucas Raymond if he takes that next step forward? Because with how Raymond has ended this season, I think Lucas Raymond 100% could be a 40-goal scorer next year, maybe get 90 points. I don't know, maybe Raymond could be that 100-point guy on the roster. Like, I'm not 100%. Like, Dylan Larkin, I think Larkin could be a 40-goal scorer. Like, I'll be honest, I think Larkin could have got the 40 goals this year if he never went down twice this year and missed 14 games to injury. Especially considering that Dylan Larkin is a point-per-game guy. Like, Alex DeBrincat needs to be more consistent, especially with how he started the first half of the year. You know, he needs to keep that. He needs to find that form back and get back on track. At least DeBrincat looked good to end the season, though. Just, yeah, like, this season was a frustrating season despite finishing with a winning record. You know, and being right in the thick of the playoff race and playing meaningful games in April, though. So I guess there's some positives there, but, you know, this season for the Waynes, it's just how the Waynes season was. They were a light switch. They were on or off. And when they were off, they were off. And in the end, the times that the Waynes were off this season, those times came back to haunt them. And it cost the Waynes a shot at making the playoffs. But yeah, just, you know, I think I addressed everything that needs to be talked about here. You know, most likely, well, right now, the Waynes, they're currently slotted at the 15th overall pick in the draft for right now. I'll be honest, in terms of the lottery, I don't see the Waynes moving up in the lottery at all. I think they're going to stay at 15. So that means the pick that we're sending to Ottawa from the DeBrincat trade last year, it's going to be the pick we got from the Bruins last year. Since Boston's in the playoffs, so that won't be a top 10 protected pick, so we would get that pick. So the Waynes are going to send that. I think that pick is going to be the one the Waynes send to Ottawa from the DeBrincat trade. Since the Waynes had the choice of either sending that pick or their own pick to Ottawa from that DeBrincat trade, since there was a conditional first. So yeah, I think the Waynes will send the pick they got from Ottawa and keep the 15th pick. Because that pick with Boston, that's most likely going to be in the mid to late 20s. But yeah, just, you know, going to be tough to say. I'm not sure where they find a 1C guy. If they already have it on the roster, if it's a Larkin or a Raymond, or if it's someone in the farm system. Like, I'll be honest, like, if it's a Casper, or hell, if it's even Nate Danielson, who's looking pretty good ever since he got in the WHL, ever since he got traded from Brandon to Portland. Or maybe it's someone we draft this year in the draft. I mean, just look at the league score. Look at the points leader this year in the league in Nikita Kucherov. You want to know what round he was taken in the draft? Kucherov was taken in the second round. He was one of Yzerman's original picks from when Yzerman first got to the Lightning. Like, Kucherov was taken in the second round, like 53rd, 54th overall. Like, the fact that Kucherov was taken the second round and he's one of the top players in the league. Like, it's all the proof you need that the NHL draft is a total draft is a total fucking crapshoot. And that you can literally find talent anywhere in the draft if you have the right people calling the shots. Just look at the Lions with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and company and how Brad Holmes has been able to cook every draft this year. Especially with all the talent he got there with the Lions. Now, I mean, Steve Yzerplan has some pretty good players. Like, I honestly want to see guys like Kosa on the roster, or see guys like Bergeron and Casper. Not only because they're massive upgrades over what we have right now, that is expendable, but I want to see what we got in these young players and see if they can help move that needle forward and take the Wings from being not just a playoff contender to maybe even a cup contender or a team that can compete for years on end. You know, I just want to see what we got in some of our young players to see if we can take that next step forward. And I'll be honest, I don't see Derek Malone getting fired despite that collapse that last month or so. I mean, even though that collapse, that's a fireable offense, no doubt. But I feel like the Wings did enough this year to where Yzerman's going to keep him around because loyalty. Like, I'll be honest, the only way the Wings fire Malone is if they think they can go get Sergei Fedorov. And I'll be honest, I don't see Fedorov happening. Like, the only way Fedorov would ever coach the Red Wings is if his jersey number's hanging up in the rafters. And the only player I can see mending that broken bridge between Fedorov and the Wings is Steve Yzerman. And I don't know if Yzerman wants that kind of a headache. But yeah, I mean, the Wings did pretty good at the end of the year. You know, beat two division rivals at the end of the year. You know, they won both games in the home-to-home. You know, but, honestly, the Wings, though, they never should have been in a position to rely on outside help. And they never should have been in a position where their last 3 games were must-win. Like I said earlier, the Wings had 82 games. They failed to get it done in 82 games. But 100% though, even though the Wings missed this year, the Wings 100% will make it next year. Especially once we get Bergeron up here and once we get Kosa and Casper up here. Because the Wings got some young talent on the roster. Who knows, maybe some of the players we have in the pipeline can be a 1C guy. Or maybe they can help elevate the team and maybe someone on the roster steps up. Like, I'll be honest, I think the closest we have on the roster right now to a 1C player on the roster is Larkin or Raymond. I mean, Larkin easily would have had a 40-40 season. He would have had at least 40 goals and 40 assists this season if he didn't go down twice. And I feel like Raymond's going to take that next step forward and he's going to have a breakout year next year. But yeah, even though the Wings ended this season pretty disappointingly, despite winning their last 3 and doing their part, and things just didn't work out the way it was meant to be. But yeah, honestly, just pretty disappointing end to the year, despite them doing everything they needed to. But yeah, even despite that, though, there's one thing we can all confidently say: the Wings still have a way brighter future than the Pistons, that's for fucking sure. And there will be playoff hockey coming to Little Caesars Arena. Just this year was not the year it was going to be. Most likely, though, Wings will be in for sure next year. But yeah, next year, though, next year's a playoff or bust season. Next year, Wings have to make it in, though. No doubt. But yeah, anyway, on to the offseason, and yeah, Steve Yzerman's got a lot of work to do, because this roster needs a massive shakeup. And I think that shakeup is get rid of some of these awful contracts and let some of the young guys come up here. Because some of the young guys we have in the pipeline, they're ready to go. Bring them up. But yeah, anyway, not much content to do with Detroit sports for the rest of the summer outside of just Tigers recaps. And, of course, the 3 Lions vlogs coming up for the draft next week. And, of course, we have the Lions' new uniforms being unveiled tomorrow. So, I'll probably have a video on that tomorrow once they're unveiled. But, yeah. That does it for Red Wings talk until June once we get to the draft. But, yeah, anyway, and free agency in the summertime. But yeah, in terms of Detroit sports recap, the only team that will be talked about in the recaps now, from now till September, will be the Tigers until Lions football season begins. But yeah, I'll be doing Red Wings recaps next season, starting back in October. But yeah, Wayne's got a lot to address though this offseason.